This is the story of a lost neighborhood and of its people who did not want to go.
I don't want no money. I want my home. The old man is old. See how the old man is old? And I'm old. That's enough. I don't want to get out. I sent my two daughters. They don't want to get out because they spend a lot of money. Plenty of money they spend in this place. We not get none for nobody. Never.
Hi, welcome to the West End Video Newsletter. The show today, I guess we've done like 2 or 3 shows in the past about West End veterans and the taking down of the memorials in the West End, and that the city never did anything about them and putting them back. But October 21st, 2005, the city found, which is strange because my brother Frank died in the Second World War on October 21st, 1944, and they put back the memorial to the West End veterans on October 21st, 2005. So it was like sort of a little bit of a strange coincidence to me, right? That on the day my brother died, that they rededicated West End veterans. He died in Italy in 1944, October 21st. The city finally decided, we did a show back a little bit ago about West End veterans in the city. Matter of fact, we did 2 shows before that. One which was, we were complaining that the city hadn't done anything. We did that with Jimmy Noel and Joe Anello, Joe Anello won a Silver Star. He was a very prominent West End veteran because he was captured he won the Silver Star. He was captured by the Chinese communists, escaped, came all the way down through North Korea and ended up back in American lines. And it's a great story. I mean, they've done pieces on him and everything. He's a West End hero, I guess you'd call him. But anyways, be that as may. Then we did another one, complaining again last April. And what happened was that the next month, the city finally decided to rededicate a West End memorial for West End veterans who had died in the Second World War and in the First World War, and all of them. So they put up that plaque again. We did the second show, right? We did 2 in a row because the second one was we had to say something that they had decided to do that, and we were complaining all these years, and then we decided to do it again. Okay, so we had to say that they were doing the right thing, and now I'm doing this one again. This is October of 2005, and because they finally did it. Menino came down and dedicated. Tom Matarazzo, who was on the show back then, was there. They had a color guard. They had a whole bunch of people. Then we went over to the West End Museum, and we went in there, and there was a whole bunch of veteran organizations. I forgot all their names, but it was a real good day. The city supplied refreshments inside the museum, and we had West End people there, and we had city people, and we had veterans groups, and we had a good time. We had coffee and cold cuts, and it was amazing. It was really a good time, and we spent 20 years waiting for it to come back. 20 years. I've been fighting 20 years. We waited 40 years for this to come back, and. But we're going to run some of the tapes that we did from the prior shows with Jimmy Murray and Tom Matarazzo. So here we go. Mention of the last show we did. The last show we did, we were talking about why the city should put the veterans' monuments and signs back, because it's a shame. It's been 40 years and something. Just after we did the show and we had him out, the mayor of Boston said that he is going to replace the sign. So it was this show has to go on because we have to, I really have to say this, I congratulate the mayor for doing what was right, and it's a happy show because for the first time in, I don't know, in my whole life that we've gotten to this point. I've been fighting this war for like 20 years, and I'm really glad and I'm happy. And tonight we have with us, we have Tom Mazzarato, Ralph Silvestro, and Jim Noe. Jim Noe and Ralph Silvestro are veterans from the Korean War, and we'll be talking to them a little bit. And we're going to be talking to Tom because Tom is with the Veteran Services of Boston, and we're going to discuss a little bit about what's going to happen with the signs. Can you give us a little information about what's going to happen and what the process is and how?
Right. Obviously, there's a long process to get an individual sign, and I'd tell you what it is. There's a resolution introduced into the City Council. From there, it goes to the Public Improvements Commission to determine the location is available. There it goes to the City Clerk. After that, the Committee to Memorialize Veterans who vote on it, and actually the Transportation Department erects the sign. Now, that seems like a long, drawn-out method, but when you think about it, it's you want to make sure that each sign has a special meaning, and that just someone doesn't say, hey, I'd like a sign for John Jones. He was a nice guy. Put one up. But the criteria is that each one of those signs in Boston is dedicated for a veteran who was killed in action.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the gold star on the sign is that indicator.
Yeah, my mother was a Gold Star mother.
Yeah?
And they used to go to the, what was that Veterans Club? It used to be in the old reliefs thing on Haymarket Square.
VFW had,
Right.
144 had a post there, and they moved to Hanover Street, and they just sold that building.
And the police station was right there, too.
Yeah, right on the Haymarket Square. That's when Haymarket Square was, there were all buildings there. There, you know,
Yeah.
it wasn't, you know, afterwards when the redevelopment and everything, the government center around the West End, it sort of like got leveled out. But why do you think they brought this back up? I know I sent a letter into the Herald, and I'm wondering if that's what
Well,
triggered it.
you know, that's almost what it takes to get the interest peaked up for that. Usually a sign is not put up unless there's a specific request for it. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is, as I stated before, is that just so that there's no indiscriminate sign put up because someone thought it'd be a good idea. And after all these signs were knocked down in the West End, there was a minimal number, actually 7, requests to place them in a different location because some of the streets that these signs were on didn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. So 7 of those were put up, and the others, there just was never any request for them. But now, as there was more interest, someone wants to look in like yourself.
Right.
It brings the subject to a head once again, and so after we're talking it over internally, the mayor thought it would be a good idea to honor all of the 20 veterans who were killed in action. And the way to do that was to put all of their names on one memorial, and we'll put them in a specific location.
One of them was a Civil War veteran. I didn't realize that.
Yes, I didn't realize it either, yeah.
Sims was a Civil War veteran that died. I didn't realize that till someone told me. Just strange. Where do you think it'll end up?
Where, the location? Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you, we already had suggested a place right near the new West End place, the new apartment that are put up. That's kind of symbolic of the West End people. There's a large area or sidewalk there, and there is a brick wall adjacent to the building. So we're looking to see if that is an acceptable site.
Will it fit?
If it is, then we will talk things over with the Arts Commission, who has to rule on all of those perennial and perpetual signs. And that's the next step, and after that is the erection.
That's right. Yeah. That'll be some time. I know I'll be happy about it because it's, to me, like I said, with my brother died in Italy, up in the Po Valley in 1944, and
Well, certainly you have a personal interest in it. I don't
Personal
blame you,
interest, yeah. As a matter of fact, he was coming back off the line, and his buddy stepped on a landmine and took them both out. So, as a matter of fact, that was his third Purple Heart. He had two before that. So. But that was a war, everybody, the whole families got wiped out. So, it wasn't just my family that suffered. But I don't want to make it seem like that there were tragic times. Now, it said something about a committee in the paper. Are they going to have people like former West Enders and everything involved in this, or is this just going to be like...
Well, no, it's kind of an internal committee. The policy advisor to the mayor was involved. One of the employees from the Neighborhood Services Department, a person from the Arts Commission, and myself.
Okay.
And so sometimes a limited number of people get a little bit more action than...
I agree with you. I have been running with committees like 10, 12 people, and
wind up with a camel, as they say.
Everybody wants to put their 2 cents in, and then what happens is some people, even after they decide it's no good, after you're gone for about 10 minutes, they bring it all back again, and it just goes over and over and over again. So, but I would like some input from the former West Enders into this. So, if we could, I would really, appreciate that. That would be a nice thing. So,
well, anyone is certainly welcome to send in comments and that all be considered, I'm sure.
So, basically. And like I say, I want to congratulate the city for this. I think it's a fine thing they're doing, and I think it's something that should have been done way before. Okay, it should have been done under the Hines or Collins administration. But, that's even under Flynn.
It's never too late.
Yeah, even under Flynn. I'm sure Flynn would have done it if he had realized it was there, because Flynn was that kind of guy. But unfortunately, it's been a long time, and I think we're all West Enders, former West Enders, will be happy. I even think the West Enders that live here today, right, will find it a fine thing to do, because these people gave their lives.
But I was in the Navy. I served in the Mediterranean.
Oh, okay.
No fault of our own.
You fought the fish.
We go where they sent.
And
that's all. I would have liked to have gone up north. But that's it.
But at the same time, during that era there, with the communists threatening us all over the world, it looked like the war was going to break out anywhere in the world. So that's why they were there, because to stop it from happening.
And it looked like there was a world war coming, and I'm glad it didn't. It looked like that was fun. You were in Korea. You were in the actual fight.
I was in Korea. I joined when I was just 18 years old after high school. And I was in combat at 19 years old, and I stood in Korea for a year. I got shot at every day. We got shot at, either mortars, artillery, bullets, what have you. And we fired back, of course, and it was quite a thing. I have a picture here with the machine gun, and I was just young. And this is me. And I remember the Chinese were just shooting at me and another guy, and I said to the guy, I don't believe it, they're just shooting at both of us. It looks like I'll never see 20 years old. He goes, you joined, you jerk. Not a word, so he said something else, but that's what I said. You joined, you jerk. I go, yeah, I did. He goes, you stupid. And I said, we're about to get killed. He called me all these names, but we didn't get killed. Everything turned out all right. There were some areas where there were bodies around us, just scared the heck out of you. Just wanted to live for another day.
Of course.
Yes.
That's proof positive you were young.
Yes, I was young. Yeah.
How about Joe Nello? He was a West Ender that was...
Yes, Joe Nello was a friend of mine from the West End. We went to school together, the Blackstone School in the West End of Boston. And he was in Korea ahead of me. And he was in when the Chinese came into the war, and all hell broke loose. Him and another guy, his friend Hershey is his nickname. He's a Japanese-American guy, and he won the Medal of Honor. and Joe, another one, the Silver Star, for holding back the Chinese while the other guys can get away. And then they got captured, and Joe escaped and got captured again. He was wounded. Hershey was wounded, and but they're both alive today. In fact, the Korean government invited them back to Korea. They're going back May 22nd of this year, 2005, and the Korean government's going to pick up all the in-house bill. And this is like 55 years later, or whatever it comes up to. That was back in 1950, 51, so it's quite a few years. And I'm sure they'd like to see the area. Well, they can't see the area where this action took place, but they'll be in Korea anyhow, in South Korea. And we still have a little piece of North Korea that we won, and of course the Chinese and North Koreans wanted it back, and with the negotiations they never got it back.
No, that was a tough time. I remember, I forgot who it was. I remember somebody from the West End went over there, and I guess they had just gotten off the boat or whatever, and they got killed. It was.
I think that was Jimmy Delmonico. I think that was.
It was somebody. I remember somebody. It wasn't. It was like almost. He just got there, and that was it. It was over for him. It's a tragic time. Like I say, in the Second World War, there was, Second World War was, everybody was dying.
Everybody.
They were against the Navy. Everybody was. Me myself, I was in the Coast Guard in peacetime, so I don't really have a lot to add to all of this. But what about your ship?
I volunteered in 1951.
Right.
I went in for 4 years. I was aboard the same ship for 4 years. They wouldn't let me off it because I was an ex-fisherman, and they wanted to keep me on there.
What was the name of your ship?
The ship was the Leary DDR 879.
Yeah.
It was destroyer radar picket ship.
Oh, okay. Smaller, about 300 feet, right?
Yeah, well, I'd say it was about 380 feet.
Yeah.
With a crew of about 375 people, and good thing about a ship that size, you get to know everybody.
Right.
Well, we had friends that Jimmy knows too, that were on crack carriers, and you could never,
Well, this thing's
it was big, so...
Too many people.
I spent most of my time in the Mediterranean. So,
Visited
And your brother was with you.
and I had a brother on the ship
the same
with me
ship?
also, because during conflicts, you could have your brothers aboard.
Right.
But when the Sullivans got lost, of course, during wartime, they eliminated it.
Well, they also initiated that, Private Ryan, that movie Private Ryan.
Right.
Where they, if you were the only surviving brother, they would pull you out of combat.
Right.
So.
And there was one good thing about being in the service. I went to see my grandmother in Italy, which I never had the chance to see over here.
Right.
So I did. I benefit that way too.
Yeah, well, people don't realize that even if you're in the service during wartime, and you're not fighting, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going through stress.
Oh, there's a lot of stress.
Because everybody's the officers and everything. See, nowadays nobody goes in the service, so it's like people enlist like here and there, do whatever.
Today it's all volunteer. I don't know if what would happen if we were ever really in a real conflict. Who'd want to go to war?
But I'm glad that Mayor Menino and Boston is considering putting these names back up, the ones that lost their lives. Also, there's more names. On our street, we had the Napoli family that they had 5 brothers in the service, and one got killed, and they never had a chance to put his name up. He died.
What war was that?
That was the Second World War.
The gentleman you mentioned, his name will be on the World War II memorial in the Fenway area.
Yeah, there was. I spoke to his brother about maybe 3 months ago. I asked him to come down to Meadow Glen Mall because the guys down the west, from the west end and the north end, get together every Thursday at the Meadow Glen Mall about 10 o'clock in front of Dunkin' Donuts. And Frank Privatera, the lawyer, buys cannolis and pastellis and all kinds of goodies. But everybody buys their own coffee.
I'll follow you anywhere. Yeah, there's quite a few guys go up there. And, we had other people like Frank Levine. I tried to get Frank over here. Frank was over in Guam in the Air Force, and he was with the Clayman kid. The Clayman kid that got killed in the flight that disappeared over China. And I guess they eventually found his body and everything. But Frank was. He was over in Guam with the Air Force. Then after a while, he came back and he met some girl in Illinois when he was going through basic, and the girl asked him if he could sail, and the Charles, the judge, what is it, the boat club down in the Charles River. That was started for West End kids by Joe Lee. Joe Lee started that thing. They built their own boats. Yeah, this is true. They built their own boats and everything, and did all this. So Frank's in Illinois, and the girl comes up to him and goes, "Do you know how to? Are you a sailor?" He says, "Yeah, I can sail." Come here. He gets back from the war, right? He gets a phone call. You know that boat that went over to Israel, the Exodus 46? Yeah. Frank was a crew member on that. So he got like a sort of a double dose, right? Guam and everything. And there's a lot of interesting stories. I think I've been remiss in that I should have went after. We did a lot of oral history tapings. We got up in the West End Branch Library. We got about 75 hours of oral history taping. But maybe it would have been a good idea to take war stories when the people were still alive.
Well,
and got all these stories, and we got a lot of political stuff about the early days, how they used to fight with each another and tear down the signs. Like even out here, sometimes I get involved in politics here, and I tell them all. I said, I remember in the old days. I said you had two crews out, one putting up signs, one tearing them down. That was a different era. Now everything has changed.
Yeah, during the Second World War, everybody was in the service. Everybody, the Navy, Coast Guard, Merchant Marines, everybody.
That was one of the positive effects of the draft. Right. Every family was involved.
Everybody.
So that if anything was decided with the military, everybody had a little involvement with it. And that doesn't happen today in a volunteer army.
Yeah.
And, if you really look at it, there are people that they're calling up are National Guards and reservists, which by the very nature of who they are should be the last ones, not the first ones called.
When I went in,
right, Ralph, about saying you don't know.
When I went in, there was four brothers of ours who were in all at the same time. There's two of us in the Navy, one in the Air Force, and one in the Army. The last brother couldn't go in because he was too young. But if he was old enough, he would have volunteered also. But today you don't get that.
There's another thing you don't get. In the Second World War, the civilians were active. I mean, I remember the paper drives. I remember when I was a kid, the paper drives.
And the metal drives.
Yeah, and everything. And people volunteering for hospitals, and people volunteering for, all this stuff. You had all that kind of stuff going on because it was a total war. And you had to fight it totally. And everybody pitched in. I don't know if it was another total war, if people would pitch in like that. I wish they would, and I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I sometimes look at the way some of these people are.
You got to support the troops no matter what.
Exactly. There are just terrible things that happen in wartime.
Right.
There's no getting around that. And we'd like to think everything is, everybody follows the Geneva Convention, but...
oh, no, especially on the other side. Look at the other side. I don't want our side to do... look, in the Second World War, a lot of things happened in the Second World War that people don't even realize happened. If you get into it, you'll find that on both sides.
Yes.
On both sides,
Yeah, the atrocities, sure.
Ralph, you have a book there, and you have some of the pictures.
Yeah, this is called The Helm, and this is a book about our basic training, which I took in Newport, Rhode Island, in February of 1951. It was a 9-week course. And here's what I look like then. It's quite a difference now. And that was me in 1951. I was just 20 years old.
When I was in the Coast Guard, we had the same uniforms. The only difference was we had a shield.
And
it was the Coast Guard, right? You couldn't tell from...
And his name is Joe Noe.
Yeah.
He's from the West End, and we did our boat camp together. We spent 9 weeks together doing boot camp.
Yeah.
And he's an old West Ender, too.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
See.
Any more?
No, that's...
Okay, and what ports did you stay in? And what ports did you go to?
Well, we did all of Southern Europe, and we started from Sicily all the way up to Trieste, which at that time was international. It didn't belong to Italy, and it didn't belong to Yugoslavia.
That's right.
But then they made it all Italian now, see? But I went all the way from Sicily to Venice and all the way up to Trieste and Genoa, you name it, because I made 3 cruises over there, which after a while, we did volunteer for other duty, but they wouldn't send us there.
Yeah.
But like
Well,
I said,
you were an important part to hold back the communists, believe me.
well, I tell you, we even went to Beirut when I was in there, and believe me, it was such a beautiful city.
It was called the Switzerland of the East.
All white buildings, and it was beautiful, and there was, and we
It's a
went
shame
there.
what happened there, too, yeah.
So, but that's, who knew?
Matter of fact, my brother's, I get his book, the 88th Division. I think I talked to you about this,
Right.
the Blue Devils
Blue
and
Devils.
and they ended up in Trieste. That was
Yeah.
where they finally ended up. That was the ending of the.
Tony Schukel from the West End was in the same
Yeah, told me,
division.
yeah. I just, if I could talk to
The Blue
him.
Devils.
Yeah. I remember that somebody was in his division. Matter of fact, somebody I know in Somerville, his brother was in the 88, but he died, so I never even got to talk to him about it. Whoever it was, they came into my house and told my mother the story about, how it ended.
Yeah, I tried to get Tony Schukel to come down, and he's very, very sick.
Sick,
Really.
yeah.
He said, I would love to come down. I said, can't you tell your story? Tell your story. These, all the veterans of World War II are gone so quick.
I know a couple, I know someone here, and he was in. There's 2 guys in Somerville I know. They were both the interpreters. They could speak Italian, and one was in Italian. Jimmy Grippo. He was down in the tank division, and they took him out as an interpreter, because he could speak Italian fluently. His tank company, like over in Europe, got like 3/4 of them wiped out, or 80% wiped out. So if he wasn't talking, right? Boom, gone. Okay, once again, isn't a memorial wish. Signs coming back to the old West End. It took 50 years, but they're coming back. And we thank the city, and I'd like to thank Tom Mazzarato. Is that right? Or
Matarazzo.
Matarazzo. Tom Matarazzo. I'm sorry I messed it up. And,
Is that right?
yeah. For coming tonight and explaining the city's part in this. And Ralph Silvestro. And, of course, Jimmy Noy. Jimmy Noy's been on before.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that you all came. That was the show we did with when they said they were going to replace the Veterans Memorials. Now, when they tore the West End down, they tore down all the street signs, they tore down everything. Every memorial to West End veterans in the West End is gone, or was gone. I take that back. I use that was because that's what I always said. And when they tore it down, it took 40 years for them to finally do something, and I'm glad they did it. And at least they did the right thing. I mean, there's been 4 different mayors in all that time, and they finally did it, and I'm glad they did it because it's the right thing to do. Menino came down, and Tom Matarazzo. Like I said, it was a good time. Everybody enjoyed themselves. West Enders had a good time. The West Enders that live there now, some of them came in. And everybody agrees that it was the right thing to do. It's unfortunate it took 40 years for people to realize that they had to do the right thing, but it happened. And like I say, when you have people that give up their lives for the supreme sacrifice, and I know a lot of people are starting to feel that now because there are a lot of veterans over in Iraq, and we got 2,000 people dead. So, those people should always be remembered. And unfortunately, like I say, in the West End for 40 years, it hadn't happened. But I have to say that it happened, and I really appreciate the city for replacing it. And anybody that had anything to do with that in the city, you have my deepest regards. See you at the next West End video, Ms. Jella.